All right, we'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. Start with a roll call. McKee here, Lanterman here, Friedrich
Here.
Barrenkamp
Here.
Nichols
Here.
Would you like to stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Agenda approval. Anything from staff? Any changes?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Anything from council?
No.
All right, then I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
You get to pick the second, Deb. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Perfect. Presentations, we have two. First, we'll go with Hennepin County Commissioner Kevin Anderson. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. As you heard, my name is Kevin Anderson. I'm your Hennepin County Commissioner serving District 7, which is the western portion of Hennepin County. It's always great to come out and visit you and provide an update on what's happening in the county and what's kind of what our priorities have been and challenges that we're facing, and make sure that our communication between cities and county remains open and strong. I want to, in years past, I've come here with a PowerPoint presentation. I've foregone that this year because there's been so many things that have changed in this year at the county that it would be outdated by the time I made it to each city council. So you'll have to just engage with me, if you will, and happy to answer any questions that if I don't make it to a topic that's important to you. First off, I want to address one thing that every year I try to make sure that I address some of the improvements and road work that we're doing, and I know that's a hot topic, especially for Corcoran. We are continuing to evaluate County Road 30. We know that it's not currently scheduled in our CIP. We do a 5-year CIP planning, which is our capital improvement plan. And we know that there is a lot of development happening, and we are committed to working alongside our cities along County Road 30, not just Corcoran, but Maple Grove as well, and making sure that we're able to address safety concerns and capacity concerns as they're arising. These things take a long time to plan out and line up money because we don't have a whole lot of money that flows into a system, especially for expansion. Usually expansion dollars flows through federal grants oftentimes. The money that we receive from the state and from our other buckets of money need to be used for specific purposes, and usually that's either maintenance of roadways, and in Hennepin County we have 2,200 lane miles of road that we are trying to maintain with an ever shrinking pot of money that we get through gas tax primarily. So that's part of the challenge of when we are looking at how we can prioritize and find ways of scheduling improvements on roadways and making sure that we're addressing things. Oftentimes it ends up being a little bit more piecemeal, safety improvements at an intersection, that type of thing, which we can usually get done a little bit more quickly. We do have some improvements scheduled for County Road 10 happening. I can't remember which year it is, but we are planning on a reconstruction, widening, and hopefully making sure that we have enough capacity for safe capacity for bicyclists and some pedestrian access kind of between that the development happening closer to the park and the Maple Grove side and 116. So there is some work being planned for that stretch, but we know that there's more work to be done. So we also are making sure that we are improving. We have scheduled on the other side of town, closer to Hanover, the roundabout at 19 and 117. Thank you. And that's scheduled for 2027. So that's an example of a spot improvement, and that's been a horrible intersection for a very long time, and glad to see that we were able to find some money. A lot of that money came from our federal partners, so thank them for their engagement and helping make sure that that got done. This year is also marked by, you've no doubt heard in the news, the hospital took up a lot of our energy the first part of the year. HCMC remains in dire condition. We received one-time money from the legislature, which gave us enough runway to make sure that the hospital won't close. However, the one-time funding doesn't address the underlying issues that exist at the hospital, namely the payer mix that the hospital sees, meaning that the mix of people who come into and show up at our hospital and the type of insurance that they have or lack of insurance. So about 75–80% of our population come to us with Medicaid or Medicare, which reimburses at about less than 70 cents per dollar of cost of care. About 11% of our patient population doesn't have any insurance and is ineligible for insurance for whatever reason, and that part of the population is growing, unfortunately. Which leaves us with just over maybe 10-ish% that has private insurance, and that's really where we're able to see reimbursement rates at closer to the cost of care. That's also really difficult. That's our longest runway, so we don't get a lot of, the money doesn't come in timely with private insurance, which is another challenge that we take very seriously, but we are working through. We're always looking for ways to be more efficient at the hospital, but the mix of the increasing number of dollars that we don't get compensated at any rate, and the amount of patients that come in with assistance that compensate us at an undercompensated rate just continues to grow and has become completely unsustainable. To the tune, the uncompensated care has grown to about $100 million a year. We, the Hennepin County, have backfilled about $40 million of this annually. But because that's growing, we can't take on more of that burden. The federal government last year changed their law through H.R. 1. That's putting an increased pressure and reducing some of our reimbursement that we're getting through Medicaid and some other mechanisms that we were able to take advantage of. And that's estimated to have about another $1.5 billion impact over the next 10 years. Not all at once. It's not a evenly distributed dollar amount over a 10-year period, but it's significant. And we're looking at, with those kinds of dollars, shifting onto a hospital system that is already struggling to make sure that that's able to pay for its staff and provide the care that patients who come to them need. The property taxpayers of Hennepin County simply can't pick that tab up. It's too big, which is why we went to the state in the first place. We're very thankful that they found the means to provide care or subsidize us for this year and probably for 2 extra years beyond it. So we have 3 years to figure this out. They have implemented a work group to evaluate and come up with what could be a long-term solution. We were proposing a sales tax. I'm going to be completely honest, not a huge fan of additional sales tax, but it would be sustainable. And people from outside Hennepin County end up paying for it as well. So that's a big part of why we were trying to get to that. I'm open to other ideas. I hope the legislature thinks creatively about how we can make it, find this, the resources to keep this statewide asset open and available for Minnesotans in years to come. Last year, just for context, last year, every county in Minnesota transferred residents who had trauma care or severe needs to HCMC, except for one. Monoman County managed to not send any patients to us last year, but rest assured, they've sent patients to us in the past. But I think that's just, it speaks to the statewide resource that it really is. We provide training for much of the state's doctors, and it's too important to let it go to the wayside. And if that hospital disappears, the ripple effects to other systems, because patients don't disappear with the disappearance of a hospital system. Those people move into other systems, and those other systems aren't prepared to handle that increase in load. So we are going to continue to fight for the survival of HCMC and look for a sustainable long-term solution. Speaking of other pressures that are happening at the county, HR 1 had a few other things that directly impacted counties, specifically SNAP benefits. About $27 million cumulative between reduction in administrative reimbursement. So in the past, the federal government would reimburse us about half of the cost of what it cost us to administer a program. They cut that to 25% and increase the amount of work that they're expecting us to do on that, meaning that we're going to have more people doing the verification work that we've been doing, and getting reimbursed about half of what we had been receiving in the past. Additionally, for the first time ever, they've cut the benefits portion and shifted that onto local taxpayers. Thankfully, the state has agreed to pick up most of that cost next year, but that's not an agreed upon thing that is going to be held into the future. So we are currently anticipating and building our budget and our staffing model around making sure that we can absorb some of those costs, or as many of those costs as we can. Additionally, there was about $28 million in Medicaid cuts that impacted counties' reimbursement through our Health and Human Services. So think behavioral health, addiction support, that type of work that the county is required to do. We won't get reimbursed for, or we are likely to not be reimbursed for some of that work going forward. We also know that there's about $12 million in housing support that we're not anticipating to be renewed next year. And there's about $102-ish million in other grants that we've secured for the duration of their life, but we know that the federal government wants to take them away because they've tried, and we've sued to make sure that because they were in place and we agreed to them, that we are maintaining them.
Can you give an example of what that is? What are you talking in, like, just help me understand in layman's terms what that is. So, think a lot of our funding for programs that we do at the county, like we have AIDS, Ryan White AIDS treatment program. That's a grant through the federal government. We get about $4 million of that. Now, that has not been, to my knowledge, that one hasn't been under threat, but if it were, if they've awarded that grant to us for, say, a 3-year period, and said,
we're going to terminate this grant early, that's something that we've said, we fought for, said, hey, you've awarded us this grant, we were eligible, you said we were going to pay for it, please honor your agreement. These things we don't expect to continue. So we kind of know that when those grant periods run out in the next 2-ish years or so, it's not likely that the federal government is going to renew those grants. So there's a lot of things that we do that are reliant on federal grants and dollars coming into the county so that we all don't have to pay for it from a property tax standpoint. Now, a lot of those things too, like say the Ryan White program, if the federal government decided to discontinue it, we would have to think very hard about whether or not we wanted to continue it on our own or if it was something that we simply can't shoulder ourselves. And I don't have the answer to that. Thankfully, we haven't had to consider that particular thing, but we will have to be considering a number of those programs. Some of the programs are mandated, so we will have to find ways of producing or coming up with the money. A lot of the health care that we deliver to inmates, for example, is mandated. We have to provide care. That is part of the funding stream through Medicaid that we're not going to get. So we have to come up with that money. So it's complicated. There's a lot of moving pieces. There's a lot of kind of nuance in the funding mechanism. The message that I want to share with you all is this impact means that come September, November, when we go through our max levy conversation, it's going to look really stark. And it's not where any of us want to be, but it's going to be a lot higher than I think we would like it to be. To give some context, every $10 million in federal programs equals, or every $10 million equals about 1 levy point to us. So when we identify $60 million in federal money that is going away, that equals about 6 levy points that we have to absorb either through staff cuts or other programmatic shifts or increases to your property tax. So those are the things that we're dealing with. We obviously need to make sure that we are still supporting our sheriff. There's need at the jail that is ever increasing, and we are going to fund that. There's needs at 911 operations. We're going to fund that. We want to make sure that we find a balance of meeting those needs and not running into overtime with the sheriff. They experienced a fair bit of overtime in the last year. And we're going to try to make sure that we're finding that right balance, but I remain committed to supporting the sheriff and making sure that public safety is first and foremost on our list of priorities. So
I have a follow-up question.
Of course.
So with grants, they're usually never ever in perpetuity. There's an
That's
ending
right.
site.
Yep.
So are we accounting for that when we accept that grant
yes.
or in the future? So I guess my question then is if we're figuring out how we're going to pay for that, how would you hold the taxpayers accountable for additional revenue if those were accounted for?
So we won't levy for dollars that a grant is funding, right? And anytime we agree to a grant, we always have like language in there that says accepting this grant does not mean that we are going to continue this in perpetuity. And should the grant run out, like this program may end, right? Some of these programs are really good and really important. They provide tangible benefits to residents and end up saving us money. And a lot of grants, like our CDBG funding, our block grants that we receive for housing support that communities across Hennepin County take advantage of for, like, oftentimes in areas like this, scattered site housing or kind of support for low-income housing repairs. Those dollars, while they come through grants, are historically stable, right? They get continued year after year. We know that they're generally available. And so if they're not going to be available, we have to make sure that we are evaluating and finding out, is the program itself something that we need to do? Is it something that is saving us money on other things that we need to do? Because much of what we do is is mandated by state or federal law.
And I
So,
understand that, but if I have a budget and
Yep.
it's something that I can't afford to do anymore, I don't do it.
right.
So I guess that's my comment. I'm trying to understand how we're deciding to continue with programs that we don't have grant funding anymore.
Yeah, and I think that's the conversations that we'll be having. Now, the 100 and some odd that that we're talking about right now, they haven't gone away, so we haven't had to eliminate those programs yet. The Medicaid dollars and the SNAP dollars, we're mandated. We are required to do that. It's in federal law that says we have to do it. So when that money goes away, the need doesn't go away, and our obligation to do it doesn't go away either. So, but it did just shift onto into our lane, so, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. That was really it. So I'm happy to go into the conversation part of this.
Sounds like a lot of hard decisions.
Yes.
Thank you for taking on that burden. One suggestion,
Mm-hmm.
hearing you talk, I hear you saying that there's going to be a need for the county to come to grips with lack of external funding, and that's going to drive some consideration for staffing.
Yep.
One of the topics I wanted to talk to you about as you come to present to us this time dovetails well with that. How familiar are you with how the county assessor functions?
Fairly familiar, yeah. I mean, so we took on assessing for most of the county, and added 2 more cities next year. But
We're one of the cities.
yes, yep,
So one thing that came to my attention this year, the county assessor has a policy that when a resident disputes a valuation increase, they will require the resident to submit to an in-person appraisal of their home before they will consider any changes
okay,
in the resident's direction. And that is a policy choice. That's not necessarily a state law. They could operate differently than that. In Corcoran last year, 115 people contacted the assessor. 64 of them were reassessed with an in-person visit. There could be an opportunity if that policy were to change so that you don't necessarily have to do an in-person visit to confirm if somebody is disputing a valuation change because of market data or because of inaccurate comps or the way the model is being presented. There are probably some of those where you could avoid having to do an in-person assessment.
sure,
And that might enable you, I don't know how big the assessor's office is, but that kind of a policy choice change might allow you to reduce some expense while also enabling residents to feel that they are being treated more fairly by the county. Because
Yeah.
the way the current policy feels to residents is the model and the assumption that the assessor is making is adequate to justify an increase. But any data that the resident brings to the county is not sufficient to justify a decrease unless you also give access to your home to an assessor to come and visit and confirm that they agree with what you're telling them. Even if things you're arguing about aren't necessarily interior condition.
sure,
So that could be a good way to help build greater trust with residents who might feel the county isn't necessarily serving their interests or serving them as much as imposing a process.
I appreciate that, thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else for Commissioner Anderson?
Oh, I'm so tempted. Okay, I like you, I voted for you, I appreciate the work you're doing. Don't interpret my comments personally. I like solutions, and you're a solution guy.
I try to be.
How about this? Don't authorize the county attorney to spend $600,000 to pay for out-of-the-state law firms to prosecute cops doing their jobs. $600,000.
I voted against that.
I know you
Yeah.
did, and that's why I like you, and that's why I voted for you. Number 2, I'm really surprised to hear that HCMC is so hard up for money. My question is, have they considered applying for daycare reimbursement? I hear there's a lot of money in that.
Well, we're not going to engage in
Look that
fraudulent
way.
behavior to get the money, so
I hear there's money to be had there.
probably not legally.
Well, since when does that stop politicians?
I tend to think that it would be better to do things legally, but it's
Okay,
just
and
me.
I appreciate it.
So Leering centers are good,
Yeah. Hearing centers.
anyhow.
Thank you.
If I may,
Yeah, please.
thanks again. You know me, we've got some intersections that are terrible. We got County Road 30 that you're already looking at and such. The 19 and 117 intersection, the future roundabout, 19 and 30, terrible. My biggest concern is the amount of, and these are all public roads, the amount of traffic that people are doing down our already taxed gravel roads and such. Is there a way, or is there something out there that the county can pay for these arteries to be paved instead of the city doing it?
I think,
I'm gonna say prematurely. We've
Sure.
got farmers and people that live on gravel roads that don't want to be burdened with that property or that
Sure.
adjustment to payment and such. There are significant number of oversized vehicles cutting through on our gravel roads to avoid that intersection. Is there a way to police it with the sheriff's department to stop some of this stuff? Another dangerous intersection, even though it's a four-way stop, I can go get gas down at 19 and 10, and people don't even stop. They're blowing through that intersection at 50, 55 miles an hour, and there's nothing being done as far as observations and such. The County Road 30 thing, you've already been there, the 101, like I was telling you a little bit ago, heading off to Buffalo at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and County Road 30 is backed up from 116 all the way to the new
Yeah.
Rush Creek Boulevard or whatever we call it, because the interstate was backed up. 101 was starting to back up. A lot of these things, it can't come fast enough. You talk 5 years, I'd rather take 5 months to be able to do something, and you know that. We are all residents of Corcoran, we're all residents of Hennepin County. If it was easy, it'd be done by now, but there are significant things that are gonna happen, and if quick responses can be from Hennepin County and all of the plannings for the roads, especially with the future development that could be happening along County Road 30, we need to work hand in hand with all of this stuff. So I do it now. I mean, I've got a whole bunch of people sitting here from Bellwether.
Yep.
I cut through Bellwether to miss some of that backup. But I'm enjoying it because I'm getting to see the development, the changes.
It's a beautiful
Someday our
development.
boardwalk, all of those things, and I'm being respectful to the stop signs, speed limits, all of those things. But the amount of traffic I'm seeing cutting through neighborhoods like this is huge.
Yep.
And,
And as you know,
like I said,
yeah.
if it was easy to be done by now.
And, the biggest challenge that we as a county face is for roads and bridges, historically, there's been not a lot of money available for expansion. A lot of, there was, the amount of money it took to maintain the roads that we had, was shrinking from the cost that it took to actually maintain it. So it wasn't keeping pace with that, so there was definitely a decision saying hey, we have to do something to change that dynamic. The 2023 legislation that redirected more of the money into counties, part of the sales tax dollars, actually got us closer to the break-even point of maintaining roads, but didn't get us to the point of expansion. And there's not a huge appetite for expansion. There's a lot of discussion right now, especially at the state legislature, about reduction of vehicle miles traveled and greenhouse gas emissions and all the other things that go into that. And without commenting a whole lot on that, I'll just say we need to do some strategic expansion to make sure that we're addressing the needs of communities. And so far, the structure to allow that happening from a funding structure hasn't existed.
Yeah.
And so we're going to keep trying to find that, either through Met Council, funding dollars, federal partners, trying to find the right projects to advance and say, hey, we need to do this next part of the project to make sure that this stretch of road is safe. We're going to keep on fighting for that, and working through all of the different mechanisms. And, you know, should somebody in this room end up at the state capitol, we'll work with them too. So.
Is it safe to say that light rail is no longer a county
Geez, don't bring
priority?
that up. What a suggestion.
So, light rail.
Not a suggestion.
Yeah,
It's a funding thing.
yeah.
Yeah, the light rail is still moving forward. It's the funding mechanism for that is the sales tax that is specific transit sales tax that's not eligible for our roads. The Metro Transit, Met Council, is still the lead agency on that. We have staff in the department to make sure that they're doing their job, and making sure that it's not going to be the same kind of fiasco that we saw with the Green Line extension. As it stands, it's still the cheapest per mile transit project that exists in the country right now, which is kind of hard to believe.
What about per rider, though?
Yeah, per
Yeah.
rider, it's gotta be.
I don't know, probably still that too, but like it's the communities that the Blue Line extension is going to serves a greater number of transit dependent households than any other transit system in the metro area. 50% of the households that will be served by that don't have a car, which is why having some kind of transit that can operate efficiently and as part of a backbone of a system is so appealing. So.
How do those decisions get made? Like, who decides that this is what's more important than, like, for example, improving County Road 30 in Corcoran?
So oftentimes those decisions are in different silos, right? So Met Council and 50 years ago, well, probably not 50 years ago, but maybe 30 years ago, I would say, had made decisions on light rail and where those endpoints went and started building up the plans to go about it. Most of those decision-making points happen at the Met Council with some involvement of county partners, people who have been assigned to like the TAB, the Transit Advisory Committee, Transportation Advisory Committee. And so there's some input from local electeds that go into there, and especially as individual plans move forward, local approval is a part of it, which is probably the biggest part where the local communities have their voice in. And every community along that route said that they still wanted it. So that was about 2 years ago.
You had mentioned that some folks didn't have cars, or what was that statistic
Yeah,
again?
50% of the ridership or projected ridership along the Blue Line. So think North Minneapolis, Robbinsdale, Brooklyn Center, Brooklyn Park. 50% of the people along that corridor don't have cars.
Would it be cheaper to just buy them cars?
It might be, but then
But
we would
haven't
have,
thought of that,
but
because
then,
we're at the Leering Center.
but then we would need to have the conversation about more bigger roads too, that we also know that we don't have. So, you know, having that many more cars adds more congestion too. So like there's a lot of trade-offs
So
that
is it for
that go
them
into
to have
this.
jobs in Minneapolis and then be transited back out to Brooklyn Park? Because it seems like jobs are moving away from Minneapolis.
There's a lot of reverse commute, right?
Okay.
So, and having a transit system that gets up to about 610 is where it's supposed to terminate, would allow for an easier access to move people who might be transit dependent through a different, like say a bus transfer, to other jobs that are, that exist in, say, Rogers or Dayton or Corcoran, or, you know, like, as businesses are expanding, especially the warehouses and shipping industry along 94, a big challenge that they're facing is we don't have enough workers, you know? And housing prices, as they're being approved, land out here isn't cheap, and so housing affordability is also not conducive to having workers that get the wages that those businesses offer. So it's part of a whole.
What can we do to help you? I know, I do appreciate the job that you're doing, and you know, frankly, I am a fan of yours. But what can we do to help you? You're certainly outnumbered.
I think, honestly, constant communication. I really appreciate hearing from you and knowing what's happening. You know, the County Road 30 thing, every year our staff gets together and talks to like engineers and people. And we try to make sure that we're getting a list of all of the priorities for each of our cities, you know, all 40 plus that we have here. And 30, I think because it's a county road and exists in the county system, didn't come up as the priority in Corcoran in that conversation. Maybe it's like how we phrase it, how we ask the question, right? But for some reason, it didn't get back to our staff that was a priority. But I had conversations with you guys. I knew. And so when I'm talking to them, I say, this is a priority. We have to make sure that this is being talked about and being worked into the plan. So they're able to go through that. So this kind of dialogue is so important. So keep engaging with me, my office. I will keep doing that. Keep talking to your staff to make sure that they're engaged anytime the county is having like staff-to-staff conversations, that your voice is being heard in that. And if you're ever feeling like it's not being heard, feel free to let me know so I can advocate and make sure that our process, and I can have a conversation with our staff to say, hey, maybe this format wasn't the best for the Corcorans or some of the smaller communities out here. So,
Can I push back? I know for certain that as we had conversation with the staff, the County Road 30 was discussed as a priority. So I'm sorry that didn't get elevated to you.
Oh.
But I know as we've spoken with them that we have continued, both for public safety concerns, the increased traffic. Since I got here when the 610 was going to come in, you and I have talked about that multiple times every
Yep.
year.
And
So.
and it
I'll
could
add-
just be this specific conversation didn't include that. And it had happened in other spaces, other ways, but with an organization like Hennepin County, sometimes those dots don't talk to each other.
And there's
And
also
so-
been a significant change of staff in those who are doing transportation planning.
There's been a lot of change. yeah.
And I do want to say thank you for that, because the changes that have occurred, we've seen some progress.
Oh,
And
good.
thank you to you in ways that we have not, it's been unprecedented. So to go from not in the 10-year plan, not in the 5-year CIP, in the last year to have the County Road 10 project put on there, your fingerprints are all over that, so thank you very much. And one of the asks that I wanted to have, if I could, Mr. Mayor, is when we look at the tremendous pressure that is on the county, when we look at the services that are being delivered, as our tax capacity continues to grow here, with our increased growth, 13.5% looking at 2027, our demand for services from the county out here is pretty limited. So one of the questions that I would have is, can we change the rubric? Since we're not asking for any of the other services, can we then get a higher priority on our county roads? Since that seems like a reasonable trade-off. We're not asking for all of the other services. We're not going to have access to the light rail. We're not going to, most of our residents are not putting a demand in HCMC. So all of these other services, it seems like we ought to be able to go for what we're contributing, be able to go to the front of the line when it comes to what's happening on the county roads, rather than other communities that are also putting these heavy pressures on all these other service delivery areas. This is the one thing we're asking for. It seems like we ought to be able to get that, because financially, when you're talking $102 million and $12 million and $28 million and all these other things, Corcoran's saying, can you fix our road? It seems like we ought to be able to go to the front of the line for that one. And then the last thing that I'd say in that, the timing of that becomes so critical. So commercial and industrial development is critical to our community to diversify our tax base. That 30 corridor is where it needs to happen, and developers are being shied away because of the quality of the road and what's being put on them. So they would be very interested in partnering if the county could take the lead on that. We have developers, the timing would be really, really great to make it happen now. They could come in now because they're being asked to do turn lanes. It'd be really unwise to put a $750,000 turn lane that we know we're going to tear out in 5 years.
Absolutely,
The county finally
right.
comes forward. Let's do it collaboratively now. They bring money to the table, which lowers the county's cost. It seems like there could be a lot of synergy.
Yeah.
If we could get the right people in the room at the table now.
And, that's really was the impetus, when I first got elected, one of the first things that I did was say, hey, in our CIP, we need to take development into consideration when it comes to our CIP. That is starting to mature into a process. I think you're starting to see a shift in how we approach that, because you're absolutely right. You want to dig once, right? Like, if you're going to put something in place, you want to make sure that the entirety of that project is in consideration, right? Which is, we've kind of perpetually been behind on some of these things, so we want to try to get a little bit ahead, and that's what I'm working on. So, because if you don't have a plan, you're always piecemealing it, and then you've piecemealed in a whole bunch of really expensive things that you're going to rip out, which we don't want to be, so. Yeah.
And just to reiterate that, 30 is that corridor is definitely, I think, our highest priority as a city from the county.
Right.
Figuring that out.
Yeah.
Getting improvements there, so.
And has
And you know me,
been-
I've been yelling about that for 6 years.
Well,
Yep.
it has been since even we had a city administrator, Brad, I remember when he was here, he was talking about 610 and the impacts to County Road 30. And at that point when he talked with, so it's been at least 7 years, at least that probably, of how detrimental that corridor was going to be.
Yep.
And I don't know if he received any positiveness back from the county. I think that he was basically like, no, this is what we're doing. You're going to have to figure out as a city how we're going to manage that. So I appreciate that you're willing to help us, but like it has been probably
been a long
longer
time.
before you were even in
Oh,
office.
I'm certain
so-
it has, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, that's the joy of public service. Most of these problems have been here longer than we have, but here we are.
Jeremy, did you?
One last follow-up. I remember last time you were here, we mentioned a new road treatment that Kevin had discovered for our roads to extend their life by 7 to 10 years.
Yeah,
Have you had any traction with the county about applying it to their new projects?
I know
Reclamite was the name of the material.
I know that we've looked at some of the things, and I don't recall off the top of my head, so I'll do a follow-up on that. Thank you.
It's tremendously expensive for you to redo a road, just like it is for us. So all of our taxes benefit
Yeah,
the longer those roads can be made to last. So I would
Yep.
just encourage, if they aren't using it, revisit it again and make sure that it's on the radar.
absolutely. Thank you.
And Kevin, is there an easy place like on your guys' website, county's website, for people, a lot of people in this room probably have comments they'd like to share with the county commission as
Yeah.
a whole? Is there an easy way for them to contact you or the commission or
So
at a meeting?
you can, we generally meet on Tuesdays at 1:30. Every other Tuesday is public comment. You can call in to the clerk's office, I think the 24 hours before, and leave a voicemail to the entire board. You can always reach out to my office. My email is kevin.anderson@hennepin.us. It's on the website, so you don't have to remember that right now. But there's also a form on my page, so if you search up, who's my county commissioner, I probably show up. I hope I show up still. And we have a form that goes to my office, and we can forward it on to staff. We can have that directed. For the entirety of the board, you can always email the clerk of the board. I think it's just clerk@hennepin or board.clerk. It's on the website.
Google Hennepin County.
Google Hennepin County. Google's going to be your best friend there. But yes, emailing the clerk gets it to everybody. I have a page on the website that comes to me, and welcome the feedback, welcome the comments. So
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
thank you.
Coming out.
Thank you.
I appreciate the time as always. Thank you.
Likewise. Good one. Alrighty. We'll move on to a second presentation, which is the 2025 audit update.
All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Ryan Schmidt. I'm a partner with Schlenner Wenner and Company. I've passed out the full audited financial statements, the report to members of governance, but we are going to focus on the summarized version, just like last year. So flip into the first page there, and going to start out with just kind of a brief reminder of what exactly it is we do during the audit each year. What's the purpose of the audit? In a nutshell, an audit essentially consists of us obtaining your financial records and information from the past year and performing procedures over this information, kind of like laid out on the slide here. The vast majority of it is sampling, detailed testing, looking at the individual transactions in your accounting system and verifying that information with invoices and reports from the county, the state, etc., all for the purpose of being able to express an opinion on whether or not we feel that your financials are accurate. So the opinion we've given you this year is what's called an unmodified opinion, and that is the clean opinion you're hoping to achieve.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
Just real quick. Hey, Kevin, could we get you guys to step in the mezzanine quick?
Echoes a little bit.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. All right, so you have the clean opinion. The next page here just kind of talks about some other required communications. How did the audit go? So if we had any difficulties during the audit in terms of getting the information we needed, or if we saw unusual transactions, we'd be obligated to tell you about that. As you can see from the screen here, nothing along those lines. Pretty standard. Everything went very smoothly. Very prompt responsiveness with getting the information we needed. Things aren't showing up quite on the slide there, but next page. As part of the audit, we also have to look at your processes and procedures that are behind the numbers. So oftentimes we have internal control related findings. A couple very common ones, which you have neither of these, but I'd like to point them out just because they are so common. One very common one is audit adjustments. So what this means is that as we perform the audit, we help clean up the numbers and we help fix things a little bit just to get those year-end balances set up and reported properly. You actually didn't have any significant audit adjustments, which meant the numbers were very clean when they came to us, so that was good to see. The next item here, just internal controls in general. The most common one we see is a lack of segregation of duties. You actually don't have any issues there, which is a little surprising for a city your size, but is partially due to the outside external vendor assistance that you've had with ABDO in the past. So you've been able to kind of segregate the duties through that and avoid that finding. And then last thing before we get into the numbers here, we also have to review your compliance with Minnesota statutes. So the state gives us checklists related to each of the areas that are bullet pointed on the slide here. We look at how did you go about contracting and bidding, where do you keep your cash and investments, so on and so forth. We didn't have any findings, no issues in those areas. All right, with that, move into the numbers a little bit. Going to start out with looking at the general fund, just a really big picture look over the past 5 years, or I'm sorry, 4 years, and then also the 2025 budget is on there as well. So just a big picture comparison to the budget. Revenues did exceed budgeted amounts by about $643,000 for the year. Expenditures were basically right on budget, under by about $4,600. So overall, you had budgeted to break even for the year, and your actual increase in fund balance was about $483,000 for the year. Now, the next 2 pages take those same revenues and expenditures and break it down into a little bit greater detail. So we have a first page here looking at revenues, and then the next with expenditures. So just walking through some of the expenditure category, or revenue categories here, sorry. You can see the vast majority of your revenues in the general fund do come from taxes. Right there, you were right on budget. In fact, the only area where you've got a little bit of a larger deviation from budget is under that licenses and permits category. There you were over budget about $397,000, mostly due to building permits. The next page, same layout, but looking at expenditures. Here you had a little bit more fluctuation back and forth between categories. Both the general government category and public safety over budget about $182,000, $240,000. You had additional professional service expenditures, extra permit inspection costs, which makes sense based on the revenues that we saw. Public works, here you were under budget, about $381,000, just looked like less road repairs and maintenance. And then the rest of the areas there pretty close to budget. On the following page, we look at the unassigned fund balance. So this is the portion of your fund balance that's just available for day-to-day use as a percentage of your annual budgeted expenditures. You have a policy in place to keep this around 5 months, which is around 42%. You can see you held very steady compared to the prior year with this ratio. You're at about 46%, so very close to your policy. All right, with that, we'll touch on some of your other funds that had a little more significant activity during the year. Here we have a couple of your capital project funds. We have your park capital fund. Revenues here mostly park dedication fees. You also had a $500,000 HUD grant this past year. The expenditures, just the park-related projects that have been happening during the past year. Overall, a decrease of about $1.6 million in that fund. The City Center Drive Fund, revenues here from your MSA aid, about $2.2 million. Various project costs, about $400,000, and then you had a transfer in from the Hackamore Upgrade Fund. So overall, an increase of about $3 million there. The next page shows the cash in both of those funds over the past 5 years, just to show you the trend. Park Capital Fund dropped about $1.2 million, and in the City Center Drive Fund, with that MSA funding coming in and the transfer from the Hackmore Fund, up about $3 million in cash. Next page, a couple of the other funds here. You've got your Debt Service Fund. Very typical activity here, revenues from taxes and assessments, expenditures to make your required debt service payments. And then the other financing sources row you see there, that's primarily transfers from water and sewer to help pay their share of the debt. Overall, an increase there of about $1.5 million. And then the 2025 Bond Equipment Fund, the other sources you see there of about 3.6, that was the bond proceeds from the 2025 bond issuance, and then the expenditures for the various equipment and vehicles that were purchased with that debt. And the cash in both of those categories. Debt service fund did jump because of the transfers from water and sewer, and a portion of the bond proceeds did go in there to just kind of pre-fund a little bit of the first debt payments. And then the 2025 Bond Equipment Fund, that went up about $1.6 million just due to the unspent portion of the bond proceeds that were left at the end of the year. All right, with that, we'll move into your enterprise funds, your water and sewer funds. The graph at the top shows operations, operating revenues versus operating expenses. And the table at the bottom has a little bit more detail, also starts with that operating activity. Just comparing to the prior year, operating revenues increased about 159,000. The jump in operating expenses that you're seeing here, there's a few things that happened. This was the first year, I believe, that you started allocating employee costs into the water and sewer funds. So that was about $256,000 of the increase in operating expenses. You also had additional professional services, and then your purchased water charges increased about $91,000. So those things in combination are causing that increase in operating expenses you're seeing. And then the non-operating revenues of about $4 million you see there, mostly connection fees that came through during the year. Overall, an increase of about 2.3 in that fund. Sewer fund, same layout and pretty similar story actually. Operating revenues here up about 245,000. Operating expenses up mostly because of the salaries and wages that we started allocating to this fund during the year. That's about 230,000. And then you also had a payment of about 234,000 for the Woodland Hills recapture agreement, and that's part of the operating expenses there as well. So overall, with the connection fees down, that's the 863,000 of non-operating revenues. Connection fees and transfers out, all things considered, a decrease here of about 400,000 for the year. And the next page shows just the cash in both of these funds. So from a cash perspective, things dropped off a little bit. Water fund down about 590,000. Sewer fund down about 469,000. Okay, so that does it for each of the individual funds. The next couple pages here, we kind of look at things wrapped together as a whole. If you were to go through the full financial statements, you'd see that there's the fund level information, which is more of what you see on a day-to-day basis. And then there's also this government-wide financials where we wrap it all together and we put it on the full accrual basis of accounting. We've got infrastructure, capital assets, et cetera. On the next page, you'll see debt as well. Overall, you can see how your assets increased compared to the prior year, mostly in the infrastructure area with amounts you've put into that. Yes?
For the benefit of the audience, we have a lot of people here.
Yep.
Okay. Could you describe what capital assets are?
Absolutely.
And how it's not necessarily financial?
Yes. Okay, so the blue bar here is current assets. That's cash, that's receivables, that's things that are more liquid that you can actually use. Capital assets, that's mostly roads, water and sewer infrastructure. It also includes buildings and equipment. So yes, it's an asset, but in a way it's also kind of a liability because you need to maintain it. So I think that's the point you're probably getting across.
Exactly.
Yep, yep.
Thank you.
Okay, next page. This is more traditional liabilities. The current assets, or the current liabilities in the blue, you can see that actually decreased a little bit. And then the most significant portion there is, of course, the long-term debt that's been used to finance a lot of the infrastructure and capital asset improvements. That increased a bit with the 2025 bond issuance that we mentioned earlier. Now the next page shows those same assets and liabilities, total citywide over the past 4 years here. So the assets being in the blue, liabilities in the red. You can see those have held pretty steady. And then on a net basis, the green is just the net between the two. So those have been trending upwards, but that is largely because of the additional infrastructure improvements that you've had over the years. And then just 2 final slides here, just kind of for informational purposes. This is showing the annual debt payments that are due each year. So this isn't the debt balance over the course of the future. This is how much is due for a payment each year, broken between principal versus interest. So on this slide, this is the debt that's being financed primarily by taxes and assessments. And then on the next slide, we have the debt that's being financed by your water and sewer funds, your utilities. And that's really all I have. Any questions?
I have a question.
Yep.
On one of your first slides, and I think I have my quote right, you said that revenues exceeded budgeted amounts by $643,082.
yes.
How do we go about sending out refund checks? Because it sounds like we overbilled.
Depends which department you're talking about.
Well, I just have a bullet point here saying revenues exceeded budgeted amounts.
Well, if we go to the next slide, it shows the breakout of those revenues. And about 400,000 of that was licenses and permits. So the permit sales, building permit fees, is most of what caused that excess revenue. From a property tax standpoint, you were right on budget.
Okay?
And then you had some intergovernmental revenues, state funding that came through that probably caused the majority of the rest of that increase over budget.
And so we made a profit,
No, there's an offsetting expense for all of those.
which is what?
So with the permits, while we increased revenue, we also had increased expenses related to those. So it's an offsetting revenue. When we get more permits, we're also going to have more expenses.
Plus, yes, that's exactly right. And then there's also that slide I would like to point out. If you flip back a couple slides to the one, keep going back. This one right here with the ratio, if you go one more forward. This one's actually pretty important in my mind. So as the city grows, and as costs increase, of course, you're going to need more revenues to finance those costs, and you're going to want a greater fund balance reserve as well. So this is looking at that fund balance, which is, as if you have revenues over budget or revenues in excess of your expenditures, your fund balance grows. This ratio is held very steady. So even though you did have an increase in fund balance due to those revenues that were over budget, it actually caused you to stay right on track with this ratio. So I wouldn't consider the excess to be necessarily a surplus. I'd say that your fund balance ratio here actually held very steady, which I see as a good thing.
Well, you're a lot smarter than me, so I'll take your word.
I just stare at this stuff a lot.
I'm sorry.
I was just gonna make one more point too, that another reason the revenues increased is also because of changing our investment strategy.
Sure.
So we budgeted really conservatively for, how we're using those reserve funds that we have invested. And we've changed our investment strategy a little bit, still very safe. And some things like CDs, and so we're making a little bit more money off that, so that's also helping that revenue increase.
At direction of council, so that was a change for this year's budget in order to review better alternatives and how we're doing our investment strategy. So like Matt was saying, it's not risky, but we're ensuring that we have the liquidity when we need it, and we're that our 42% requirement that we have to keep as a reserve. If we're not needing it right now, we're investing it in ways that are also helping us then potentially have additional revenues that will allow us potentially to decrease our levy requirements on our residents.
Jay, Matt, can you speak to how much of that was in effect in 2025 versus 2026? I know you've seen some favorable results this year. Was that actually in effect at the end of 2025 as well?
It actually didn't come into effect until June of 2025, so it's more effective this year in 2026. So we'll see potentially better.
Yeah, I quantified it as about $100,000 over budget at that 600. So it's not a huge piece, but I just think it's a nice highlight.
Yeah.
That we're making a little bit more money off of that balance that we have.
So we have to hold it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Excellent.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, now we'll go on to open forum. If we have anyone that wants to speak on a non-agenda item, do we have any cards?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we have two cards. So speaking on an item that is not on the agenda, 3 to 5 minutes, please address your comments to the council. The first one I would invite forward. Please state your name and record for the record, Mr. Kevin Pomarlo.
Howdy. I'm Kevin Pomerlow. I live on 10,009 Jack Pine Lane in the Belleville community. So the gentleman just left, who I was really going to address this to, so sorry. Mr. Mayor, council, and staff, thank you for your time. We appreciate you listening to our concerns. We're We're grateful to have the opportunity to be part of these conversations so that we can share our concerns, not just about our community, but the community at large, and how we work together to solve these issues. We have nothing against the expansion of Corcoran. That works in all of our favors, so we're looking forward to that. We just want to make certain that expansion happens in a way that accommodates all the communities we're talking about. I was going to talk to the commissioner, and I did, but not in this form. So let me just kind of hit some of the high points. We've already talked about those at length a little bit. Was doing some research. The current ADT, the average daily traffic between 116, County Road 30, and 101 is just shy of 30,000 cars today. The 2%.
Today it was about 65,000.
You know, I have a drone, and I go up and I look, and I'm going, I'm glad I'm not making that commute, because that's, to your point, it's like water. It's going to find a place to go, and it will flow through Bellwether. It'll flow through Springs. It's not going to be a good outcome. There's about just about 30,000 cars today. If you use the 2% that Stantec puts in, which is more of a number that you would see in a more developed community versus a growing community, that's another 10,000 cars in the next 3 to 4 years. If you take numbers that are more indicative of a growing community on the fringe of the metro, which is where we are at right now, you're looking more at 3 to 4% conservatively, up to 7 to 8%. So you went from potentially 10,000 cars to 20, 30,000 cars on a road system that was never designed to handle that capacity. So we have a growing city at double-digit growth. We have the influx from 94, from 610, people coming out of Rogers, trying to get away from traffic, people coming up to 55. So this is all going to contribute to a lot more traffic happening. So our hope is that we can be preemptive about this and not reactive. I think it was Kevin the other night said the community, or the county tends to be reactive. I spent a lifetime doing architecture, and you didn't react afterwards. You tried to plan for it before it happened, because doing it afterward cost you a factor of 10, if not orders of magnitude more money to do it later. The point being made earlier, if you're going to tear something down and put it back together several times, it's insanely expensive. I used to live south of 169, or south on 169, and I watched them redesign and rebuild the 169 494 interchange 3 times with my tax dollars. And I'm going, you can't tell me you didn't know this was going to change. I don't know who was planning that, but I have an issue with that architectural approach. So I'm not going to belabor it at length here, but I want the community to know that we are supporting the community, and we are keenly aware of the fact that as the growth happens on 30, there's a huge impact to our community and the communities that we place there. And we need to be very mindful of that in a proactive fashion, so we do not have security concerns, we do not have safety concerns. Because people are going to go, and they're not going to go slow. And so we do not want to be on the other side of that equation. Thank you for your time. Again, the gentleman who I wanted to talk to is exiting stage left, so we won't belabor this. We appreciate your time, and we look forward to more conversations as the community continues to grow. Thank you very much.
Mr. Mayor, could I just say one thing? Sure. I know I appreciate the passion of your community, and I would ask when he shared, please write all of those, not just him, because he's advocating for us. Please have your folks write all of those commissioners about County Road 30 as a priority. Please communicate your concerns to them, because they have to be persuaded as well. He is advocating with us, but he's one voice in a very loud room.
If you have good drone footage, share that with them as well.
Yeah.
I do have drone footage.
Yes.
I tend to execute on data, because data is hard to dispute. You can get all emotional about it, but that's not helpful. Data is the data. You go, well, you don't like it, that's one thing, but it is what it is. To your point.
He's been hearing all of our voices for many years. The other folks, we don't really have access to them, but as a resident, they represent you as well.
So let's just say we aspire to touch as many ears as possible. That's my conversation with Kevin just now was, thank you for your efforts. Who else do we talk to at the state or federal level? Don't care. We just want you to do things planfully and not reactively. So if that means we have to talk to the board, yay, fine dandy, we'll do that. To talk to state representatives, senators, we don't care. So we just need to know where to bring our voice, and we will bring it. We've got part of our community here tonight. We have over 240 people on a petition to address these issues, and we're growing that petition. So the community's active, and it wants things to happen in a mindful, planful way. Thank you.
Thank you.
You guys want this?
What is it?
I don't know. Well, it's the longer version of this.
Sure.
All right, well, I'll just set it up here and you all.
You can do that if you get it in an email. I love email. Go get them. If you're gonna send it,
Thank you.
I'd love to have it.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Of course.
Do we have, I'll share one with my friends. Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I'd like to ask a question in response to the comment.
Sure.
Can we say for sure whether the signal timing has been optimized along County Road 30 in light of the changes from the completion of 610?
No.
Is that something that we can initiate with the county of Maple Grove to try to, roads can flow differently depending on how the signals are configured. If we see a lot more traffic in one direction than another, maybe that timing can help streamline some of this disruption that we're seeing?
Yeah, we have monthly, if not weekly, conversations with county staff in this area, and I'd say a couple weeks ago we brought that up, so we can check in on them to see if they make any changes. Sounds like they did not, but that is something we can request of them. They control those systems, but we can ask them to review them.
Do they control them all the way along, or does it switch over to Maple Grove at some point?
I would say mostly, I mean, I don't know what their JPAs are, but I would say typically the county interconnects all of them.
Okay.
And then make the cities pay for them or maintain them is the common approach unless they've negotiated an outlier. So.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, generally on any kind of road at all. If you ever have been to the operations center in Dinah, it's cool and scary at the same time because you can see you can pick a light and watch someone drinking their cup of coffee at the stoplight, anywhere in the county.
Sometimes the challenge with too much data is it's hard to interpret
Yeah.
and know when you're not seeing
It's
what you
literally
should
a
see.
room twice as tall as this with just screens of different intersections across the county. It's interesting.
We have one more card, Mr.
Okay.
Mayor. Mr. Nate Kearney, please come to the microphone, state your name and address for the record.
Thank you, staff and council. My name is Nate Karanimi at 20795 Larkin Road. And I wanted to bring back some information related to a question that I was asked when I last brought this particular issue before the open forum. And just for a little bit of more context, I'll briefly restate kind of what brought me here originally, which is the trail plan at County Road 10, County Road 19, the trail associated with Karanimi Meadows, the development, which has been partially completed. And one thing that is unique, and I apologize if I'm repeating myself, but I think it's worth just restating some of the original facts, is that this trail plan was not actually completed in terms of the specifications and the planning prior to filing the final plat, which as I understand is a little bit uncommon, not typical practice, but it does lead us to the question now of how to get that plan installed, and or I should say get the improvements installed. And if you look at the plan, there's a series of kind of jig-jag. It's not a plan that follows like normal, like nice radials that you typically see associated with a trail plan. And in fact, I apologize for telling the joke again, but I've learned more about trails than I ever expected to recently, thanks to many of the folks in this room. But Dwight, I actually asked this question specifically to Dwight: why don't you allow a 90-degree turn in a trail, and it's because of the fact that it doesn't meet what's known as a bicycle policy standard. I probably butchered the name, but those 90-degree turns are, they're not conducive, obviously, for certain safety considerations that would be associated with bicycles, hence the name, I suppose. But as the contractor explained to me before he walked off the job, he stated that there's no way for heavy equipment to access this trail. It's not, not for maintenance, not for installation. So there's a particular problem here with this design. Even if this trail were fully installed today, it's very possible that in the very near future, you'd be ripping some portion of that trail out to make it compliant, which is a bit of a problem given that the project is already done, the easements are set, and we're kind of trying to go back and amend something that's already in place, and there's a third-party property owner. So after kind of restating those facts, Mr. Mayor, you asked me a question at the end of my 5-minute session when I was in here several months ago, and you asked, would it be possible to get some sort of, temporary easements to, to at least for the installation. Now, that certainly wouldn't help with the maintenance and service portion down the road. For example, if you ever had a safety issue or you had a drainage issue that needed to be addressed, you'd have to go back to that property owner and again, obtain new easements. I'm not trying to tell anybody about planning around here, but normally those things would be, they'd be set in stone before you file the final plat to avoid those types of situations. I was unable to, the answer to the question is I was unable to get those temporary easements. So with that said, I don't know if I can provide any additional information at this time, but I'm requesting the same thing I requested before, which is there any way can we look at other options? I want to finish this project. I'm at a deadlock. I've got a big invoice for mobilizing a ton of equipment. These contractors that install trails don't just bring their equipment out and then, leave the job. So that's on me. I've got that to deal with, but I'm trying to find, I'd rather put that money towards a real solution rather than keep trying to go through these kind of counter proposals and different iterations.
Okay, thank you for bringing it up. We'll have staff follow up on that information and reach out, and hopefully we can figure something out from there. Thank you.
Okay.
Bringing it back up.
All right, I appreciate the time. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you. All right, anyone else?
No other cards or letters.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor.
Then, if no one else is wanting to speak, let me get back to the agenda. You wouldn't think I'd lose it. There we go. On to consent agenda consisting of items 6A through 6K. Does anyone want to pull anything? Going once, going twice. Sold. All right, I will make a motion to, or I'll entertain a motion to approve consent agenda items 6A through 6K.
So moved. Second.
They're quick to do that. All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Boom, moving right along. No 7, no 8. Let's see here. Unfinished business, civic campus update.
So, Mr. Mayor, I emailed you, following council direction after the last meeting, we have been trying to move pretty fast to accomplish your objectives, because in order to get those things designed and in the mail, we have a pretty short timeline. And then also, to meet that, we've also added some information in terms of videos. So we completed some video recording today for another video to address some of the issues that you brought up that you wanted to make sure that we address. I don't have an exact production date, but hopefully within the next week, I'll have an update with you on when that will produce. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for your participation, and also Mr. Lothar, and I'll want to thank Randy Schaefer, who helped us out, and Christy Munnins.
On camera.
Yeah,
On camera.
he's very well rehearsed, and Christy Munnins, and then some other staff. Yeah, so that recording happened today. What I am hoping for is, in terms of the flyer, in order for us to meet the timeline that you've given us, we actually have to get something to the printer tomorrow. And so need some feedback on the flyer in order to update the flyer. I know some of you emailed me some feedback, and we can include that. But if there's other direct feedback, in order to meet council's direction, we have to get that to the printer by close of business tomorrow.
I have feedback for you.
Yes, sir.
Can we pull the mailer up? Is that possible, or?
So I will try. I've been having squirrely problems.
Yes, if not, that's okay.
So I will keep working on it if you want to.
Okay, all right. So I think the mailer gets a lot right. It makes the case clearly, and it discloses the tax impact on a median value home more than the survey did. I have 2 corrections and some additions. The 2 corrections are factual and need to be fixed before printing. The blue box, which you would see if we could get that up, the blue box cites statute 475.58 as the source of the reverse referendum. That's the wrong statute. The petition right is in statute 475.521. Section 475.58 contains no petition mechanism at all. We should not mail an incorrect citation to 3,000 households. The mailer says the petition is due within 30 days of the council's vote. The statute runs that clock from the required public hearing, which this mailer never mentions. So if the hearing and the vote...
It's actually under what's next. If you look up August 13th is the public hearing date.
Okay. Well, if the hearing and the vote, did you say that they're on the same evening?
Yes.
Then I think we should just say so and print the date. Because if not, then we've told residents their deadline is later than it is. So I just think we should have the date in there. And then just a few additions. If the petition is truly the public's only voice on this bond, the mailer should let them use it. It describes the right without enabling it. Residents need the actual signature number. I understand it's under 300 or so. We should include that number. We should include the actual deadline date, where to file and who to contact. The hearing date, and both unfilled date placeholders should be filled in, including bonds will be sold, with a plain statement that the sale happens after the petition window closes. Otherwise, the right isn't worth much. 3 things on cost. The $323 is year 1 only. It escalates about $25 annually over 20 years. Given residents the first year number, I'm asking that we give residents the first year number, the escalation, and the total. The $10 million in municipal utility payments is money residents pay through their water and sewer bills. It shouldn't read as though it reduces their cost. And the $20.6 million federal request doesn't appear at all. Residents should know where it stands and whether an award shrinks the bond. Finally, the statistics justifying the project are set in 42-point font. The number telling the homeowner what it costs him or her is 11-point italic. I think we should make the cost font at least as easy to read as the reasons for it. I would rather mail a piece we can defend in 2 years than one we have to explain. Thank you.
And I do want to say, this was put together quickly. A contractor helped us out with this as directed. And so that's exactly why we're here, is to get it right.
No worries.
So I just wanted folks to understand this was given to us in order to try and expedite, and that's why we're here tonight, is to make sure we get it right.
It was the first draft.
Yeah.
On a tight
They
schedule.
came out,
You're on
yesterday
a tight
afternoon.
schedule, I get
Yes.
it, don't take it personally.
City Administrator Tobin, can I just confirm something? I've been under the impression that the cost was 40 million, and is that because we never talked about the extra 10 million?
So the cost of the building was a not to exceed 50 million.
Okay,
And so that would then decrease the bond requirement to 40 million.
okay.
And there was some other language that staff was talking about too, in terms of, so for example, August 13th, we're gonna change the language. It says city council members will vote to proceed. That's incorrect language. Council members will make a decision.
Yeah.
And so, like, I just wanted to make that clear. So when they put that in, we're recognizing that. We don't want to misrepresent that this is a foregone conclusion, because it's not. And so, but I also want to remind council that should council choose not to proceed, then there cannot be a referendum for folks to vote on it. It kills the project in its entirety.
I know you're on a very tight schedule to get this printed. Is it possible for us to see the updated draft before we pay to have it printed?
I will do my best. I can see if we can delay until Tuesday, but I've got concerns about meeting the timeline in which you wanted it to get to residents. So right now, the timeline isn't the production, it's the mailing.
Yeah.
And so once we get it to the printer, they cannot guarantee that it would be best that they would give us is 2 weeks. And so delivery date right now is the 27th, if we get it out tomorrow.
If you can get me a draft, I can represent, I'll turn it around in 30 minutes.
I will do my best. Again, I'm also sending this to the contractor who's going to build that, and so I can't guarantee when they're going to give that to me. So it may delay delivery. I just want to be transparent about that. I'm providing the feedback.
Yep.
I'm not doing the updates.
Yeah, if it's possible. Don't want to freak anyone out, but I did get a Christmas card that I sent out in December back last week from the post office. So take that for what it's worth. No, I don't know why it came back.
Well, we were talking about staffing earlier. If we could hire Mr. McFeely and deliver just in Corcoran, I think we might get more effective with our own post office, but that is not the case.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
Just real quick, and I don't know if this is something that can go in, but I'd really like everybody to understand, back in 2017-18, council and the mayor put forth that $50 million for a city campus. That included, at that time, fire, police, city hall, and public works. So in those 9 years, we're now down to $50 million to build a city hall and police station. That's how much this has messed things up for.
That's how fast it's increasing in cost.
It is just going nuts. If we push this out any more time, we could maybe build a police station or city hall, not both. So it is something that we all take very seriously, and obviously we're all taxpayers too and such, so we know and understand. But with this current growth and everything that's expected to come in the future, there's very limited things that can be done in this building. So just
Can I build on
want
that?
a little bit more history. Go
Councilmember
ahead.
Barron-Camp? So for the public's awareness, I know council's aware, we did have a scare this past weekend.
Yeah, good.
We had a fire in the police department. It was an electrical fire, and thankfully, police officers were here, got it, it was contained. But I want to go back to decision-making in 2018 when renovations occurred. In order to keep it inexpensive, it wasn't this council, a different council, there was a conscious decision not to do anything about fire suppression. So if that had not been contained, this whole building would have gone down. Because we have a wood building, and the attic up here is all wood trusses, and there's no fire suppression system here. So thank God that an officer came in, and then also the fire department was able to respond, and it was contained to the locker room, and we were able to get that corrected. But I just want to emphasize that as folks keep saying this building is great and it's doing great, what's not factored in when we talked about the $2 million was a fire suppression system. And we can't do a fire suppression system piecemeal, do half size, half this size. That would be another $1 to $2 million on this building if you've ever done a fire suppression system. And it still wouldn't be large enough. And so, again, thank God, because if this building had gone down last Saturday, or was it Friday? No, I think it was last Friday night. If it had gone down, we don't have anywhere else to operate. But even more importantly, we would have lost critical evidence that is important in criminal investigations going on. We would have lost all of the historic records as it pertains to elections, because there was a decision made to be cheap and not put a fire suppression system in this in 2018. And so, as Councilmember Behrenkamp said, expenses keep escalating. It's never going to get cheaper, but as we accept risk, it's certainly getting riskier. So, thank God the fire didn't spread.
Yeah, definitely. That could have been catastrophic. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Is that everything for the update?
Let me do a quick inventory. Sorry, my brain is full.
No worries.
So if you could email me your feedback. I've got so many notes. I want to make sure that I can do a checklist to catch people's notes. That's the most effective way for me to make sure nothing gets missed in translations, please. And then staff is also doing a check. What I can guarantee is I will compile the notes so everybody can see what's been suggested. And then I will get something out as soon as I've got an updated version from our vendor.
I sent you a summary of my recommendation.
Perfect.
Thank you,
Is that
sir.
the game?
Could we
sent
just
mine
make sure,
yesterday.
whoops, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, Michelle.
I was just gonna say, could we make sure a copy gets put in with the packet? Because we're discussing the flyer tonight, it should be
Yes.
included in the packet.
And I emailed mine yesterday, I think.
Yeah,
it was received.
we've been talking about those. Thank you. Let me think if there's anything else. So on the 23rd for the agenda, we will be coming forward. It'll be added to the agenda, council, for schematic design.
Okay.
And so again, we don't have the set budget until council provides that final feedback on schematic design. And the reason we're bringing it forward on the 23rd is because I want to be get that refined and detailed so that we can have those final budget numbers for that final open house. And I'm going to forget anything.
Mayor, can I clarify one thing as far as process? So, Jay, do you have clarity as far as what the council's direction is for the content? I understand there may be some refinements that you would make, but you won't be able to pull the council outside of an open meeting. Okay, is everybody okay with this? That would be problematic. So
Fair.
the direction would have to come tonight, and then the fine tuning can come from any, if you have a designated one or two individuals that submit content, that's fine. But we can't collaborate on the final draft and then approve it outside of the open meeting. We have to approve what's going in there, or at least giving direction on.
How about direction, or if we need a motion on reviewing the notes sent in by council, and sending out subject to approval by me and Jay? Does that work? Sure.
Yeah.
Does that work as direction?
Yeah, that's fine, Mayor.
Perfect.
So basically, final revisions by the mayor, the content can come from there.
Okay, sounds good. Alrighty, on to new business.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor.
Nope.
We did receive a comment card
Oh,
on the
okay.
item. I apologize. Again, I said my brain was full.
No worries.
So, Ms. Nicole Sanders, if you could please come state your name for the record and your address, and you have 3 to 5 minutes to address the council.
Great, thank you. Hi, Mayor McKee, council, and city. My name is Nicole Sanders. I'm at 8026 Walnut Lane here in Corcoran. I shared my opposition about the Civic Campus proposal at the last meeting, so I won't go through all of that again. Tonight, I just really have questions, and I'm grateful that actually some of them have already been brought up. For starters, I'd like to know why the city was telling the community that, in our recent, which I love this, by the way, you guys did a great job. The only thing I didn't really appreciate was it literally says in here, I'd like to also thank the significant number of residents who participated in the city's recent community facilities survey. Your strong response provided valuable feedback. But then it was only 20% of the population. So I was like, was that real good communication? You know, was that strong?
I
Was,
can address that briefly. That was coming from
please,
my
thank
letter.
you. I think I'm
This
just
is
not
coming
understanding.
From the front page, my letter.
Yeah.
That was based on what we had discussions with the firm, that does the survey itself, and they said a 10% response rate is statistically significant, and
Okay.
20% is exceeded their expectations.
Okay, gotcha, got it. And I appreciate that, that's why I wanted to ask the question, because I'm like, to me, 20% feels really sad. But, and then, I'm really grateful you popped up this new survey, because I really would love to just have the pictures removed from there. It's just taking up extra space, and I think the valid points should be the things, like you were saying, be bigger font. You know, really, those are the things that should stand out in my my opinion on it. You know, and the fact that it isn't approved yet. I would love to see the website actually say that, because when you look, and there's the website as it's revamped right now looks phenomenal. So thank you to all of you that worked on it. But that tab for the Civic Campus, it appears as though this is a done deal. This thing is like a train is on the track and it's going. This is phase 1, this is phase 2, this is phase 3. There's nothing on there that says this isn't approved. Nothing. So it just gives this impression as though we're being kind of railroaded, when I don't believe that's the intent, because there is obviously a concern of wanting feedback, and we're going to do this other survey. So I would just ask that the website also be updated to clarify that.
Can I ask a question real quick?
Sure.
Yeah.
Were you able to attend any of the 5 community meetings since March?
You know what? I was fortunate. When I received mine, I received my survey the week it was due.
No,
but
I'm not talking the survey, I'm talking the community engagement meeting.
the open houses?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I didn't know about them until I got that survey, and then I was like, oh my gosh, what is this? I didn't know until then that I've got to be dialed into that website, because that's where I think the communication's happening. So I appreciate how nicely it's laid out, but by the time I got it, I think 3 had already happened or something, 2 for sure had happened. And then even when I went there, the wording was very much like, you know, look at our new building, this is what we have to have, and all of that. It is the impression.
That was not even close to the intent. The intent was,
Yeah.
what are your thoughts and ideas and such?
Yeah, yeah.
I'm gonna be defensive
That's
for us
okay.
and the city,
Yeah.
the city administration and stuff.
Yeah.
We are asking for input, and
Right.
I'm disappointed that we are getting, and I'll take time away from
Yeah, I'm
me
not gonna-
talking. I'm disappointed in the number of people that are saying this is all new to me.
Right.
And the way you're reading it is not even close to the intent and such. But I do want folks to understand, this building is in dire straits. I'm not even gonna say dire need. It is just, and again, I'm one of those people that I'd really rather not spend $50 million, but it could have been done 8-9 years ago.
Well-
And, there's just so many things that have happened. Your comments related to last time, you spoke very, very well about industrial, commercial, all of those things. If
Right.
you know somebody that wants to come, tell us.
Yeah,
We are doing it every day,
I
trying
know.
to get those things. And
Yeah.
then when we do get them, we turn around and argue and fight, and neighbors say I didn't move next to a farm field to see development happen, when their property was a farm field 6 or 7 years ago. So it is very, very frustrating. I've been a long-term resident here. I live 1 mile away from the western border, but this is extremely important to all of us. Everything is happening, so
Right.
thank you for letting me speak.
Yeah, no,
Very much.
thank you. You know, and I really don't think it's wise to make decisions that are large based on fear. I just don't. I think that there needs to be well thought out plans. And again, to that whole point of like, build it right once, I believe we should have all this growth. We're gonna have the growth. I want the growth. It's great. However, I do feel like if we're asking residents to have this level of a tax burden, there should be something, I don't know, it just feels like there's not a community center, like I don't know, I moved from the Wayzata district in Plymouth here. I love where I live, I do. Was I stunned to see the tax bill? Yeah. Am I stunned to see this? I sure am. I expected to pay those high taxes in Plymouth, in the Wayzata School District. I had a fire department. I had a few fire departments. I had a library. I had a number of grocery stores. I had retail. I had walking trails inside. All the things. I had walking trails outside. And I knew I was paying for it. And I took advantage of it, and it was great. And I moved here, and I was like, I'm not going to have any of that, but I'm not paying the taxes for it either, so I guess it's a wash, no big deal. But then to see this happen, I'm like, well, wait a second. We're getting all this, but we don't have, you know, and I can appreciate, I am grateful for the service that each of you provide, and especially the police department. My dad is a retired police officer. It's near and dear to my heart. But I really feel like instead of just rushing and trying to cram this thing through into something that I don't know that we can necessarily afford based on our tax basis right now, I'd rather see us just pause and do it right, and just do it right once. So that's just my
Just a
point.
little quick, too.
Mm-hmm.
This used to be City Hall from here that way.
Mm-hmm.
That's our police department. That was our community room.
Yep, I know.
It's gone.
Yep.
They are elbows to elbows staffed in there. And we are now building a community room out at City Park. That is probably undersized.
In a new building, the park.
But we have to rent to use, we have to pay rent to use that, though. Yeah, I'm
We
talking,
did here, too.
oh,
Back
okay.
in the day.
Okay, and I was referring, yeah,
We've been without it for, when did we remodel?
2020.
20, that went away. 19, it went away. It was a huge asset.
right,
But
Right.
with everybody that's been coming in, we've had to do everything we've done.
Right.
And it's a big one. We were able to make something happen in the park with
Yeah.
the park dedication fees, all of that stuff. So
yeah.
welcome, but again, all of the things you're talking about, we aren't trying to cram this down anybody's throat or anything. We should have done something. Things should have started in 17, 18. And it has just been delayed and delayed and delayed with some of the same things that's come from new residents saying, I don't want to pay for that. I don't want to pay for that. It's going to come to a point at some point that us as elected officials got to make a decision and say, it's time, because if we don't do it sooner, it's going to even be more money, which is what I don't want. So,
Mr. Mayor, could I
again,
just-
you're making some great comments. Thank you.
So I did want to comment, Councilmember Behrenkamp. Actually, in 2018, there was a space needs study that identified that the city did in fact need a building then. And so the renovations that occurred in 2018 were recognized as a Band-Aid, and that's why they put the placeholder then. It was intended to last for 3 to 5 years, and now we're in 2026. And so I would say there was a plan then, there was a decision to delay with the renovation, and that's why we're here.
Well, right, but I think that the tricky part is that the tax base to support it still isn't there. So I'm sad that it wasn't there then, but I'm kind of sad that it's not there now. And that's what I'm saying, is wouldn't we prefer to be in a financially stable position where we have C&I that's supporting this, so all of the burden isn't on our taxpayers? That's my whole point. So I can appreciate that we're going to pay more if we do this a couple of years down the road. I understand that it's not ideal. There is a lot of extra space in here, but I know it's not ideal, it's not perfect, and no one wants
Can you
it.
point to where the extra space is?
There's the lobby
It's
here.
actually used for elections here starting next week.
Okay, but I'm just telling you, I do think in the private sector, people do things like put up temporary walls and make do when they have to. Things get moved around like when they have to. I'm not implying that you don't all deserve more. I'm just saying if things need to happen because of the money, that the financial situation we're in, sometimes you have to do what you have to do. That's all I'm saying.
Thank you.
All right.
Is it possible to follow up with the
Not technically, but if we can do one brief one of.
Thank you.
Come to the microphone, please.
Yeah.
State your name and address for the record.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I'm not gonna be literal all that, but,
Name and address for the record.
oh, yes, sorry, thank you. My name is Kevin Pomerlow. I live on 10,009 Jack Pine Lane still, and I'm in Corcoran, Bellwether. It's not a debate about whether or not a facility needs to be built. The question I would have in my mind is, does it need to be a 20-year facility, or can you architecturally design it to be a 20-year facility, and then as we have capability from a financial perspective, build it out incrementally? So this is something to the private sector. You made plans for decades, and you architected for decades, and you spent the money you had then. You made a design that allowed for expansion. I don't know if that's been considered or not, but if we could dial it back to the ma'am's point about what we could afford as a community and still build something, but build it such that we can expand it as we get more residents and we get more commercial and other tax base, build on that. It's not, the point being made, going to be as cost effective, but for those of us carrying the load, the tax load, it kind of feels like a compromise might be a way to pull forward. So just a suggestion, still build something, move out of this, something safer, something more accommodating, something we can expand to as we have more tax base due to the expansion. That's all I want to say. Thank you.
I'll just remind council that a 10-year building and 20-year building were both options on the survey. And the 20-year building, in terms of stewardship perspective, was most of the comments on why they elected for a 20-year building, because there was such a significant cost increase, and they're actually looked from stewardship perspective to be more prudent at 10-year. And then to build on that, the unprecedented growth we've tried to project. So, for example, Corcoran was projected to be 11,300 people in 2040, and we're going to cross that in 2028. And so what actually is a 10-year building? And we're behind right now. So do we build to a 10-year building based on that? Well, we're already not going to meet the population needs if we build a 10-year building, if we're already meeting the 20-year plan in 12 years early, 8 years into the 20-year plan. And so from a strategic perspective, architecturally, if you had that kind of unprecedented growth, it would be potentially dangerous to go with a small plan. But the public and the survey favorably said the 20-year plan. That's
Appreciate it.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Um,
I just have a question though. I mean, we're in charge of our own growth, right? Like the city's the one approving the growth that's on this significant, like rapid pace, right?
Much of growth is by right,
Yeah.
not at our discretion.
Okay, so we don't approve the developers that come in.
There's limited discretion as to what we can reject a plan for in most cases.
So anything that's in the MUSA Met Council sewer area,
Right.
you can develop at, actually, there's a minimum density that you can develop at, which has been historically 3 units an acre for an average of all your residential, just got increased to 3.5 this last year by the Met Council. They wanted it to be higher. Some bills wanted it 5, some even 8, which would have logistically not worked. It's been in there. But, yeah, there's basically only certain things you can deny for what they're allowed to do.
If a developer submits a conforming plan,
We
it
have
has
to
to be
legally approve it, yeah. Yep.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
Jim, you made the comment
Could you
about.
please state your name and address for the record?
Hi, thank you for taking my question. My name is Jules Rouse. I live on 8027 Walnut Lane over here, Rush Creek. So you made a comment that the survey stated that the people who answered the survey wanted the additional 20-year plan for stewardship. Can you explain what that meant? And I'd also like to follow up with Mr. Dean commented on Nicole's questions about, have you been to the meetings? Have you participated in some of these? I didn't know anything about it either. I've been out here for 3 years moving from Plymouth myself. And some of this just feels like it's really quick, although from what you said, it's been since 2017 or 2018.
You're not the only
Yeah,
person
so I
that
think
has
that that's what a lot of us feel, is that this is a really rushed decision when I know that it's not. But case in point, it's got to go to the printer tomorrow. Well, I'd rather wait until you have something more concrete and it's flushed out. And I guess I come from corporate America where we have like debate and conversations, and it doesn't really feel like only through a survey are we allowed to have a voice. And I think to be able to stand up and ask questions or have a little bit more of a back and forth dialogue, is that ever going to be something that could be an option versus a survey? Because I will tell you, and maybe bad me because I didn't open my laptop, but I looked at it on my phone. I literally didn't even know how to answer the questions. Like, I don't know what plot I lived in. Like, it, you know, it was very tactile versus just, you know, kind of explaining to people, I think, what it really is, a really big, expensive project that is very not well communicated and not very well explained. So,
Can I ask one?
Yeah.
Have you read this? Have
Yeah.
you seen this?
yeah,
It was advertised in the last two. And so if you didn't see it, that we had the open houses, it was
Yeah.
actually published in the quarterly newsletter.
and maybe I couldn't make it. Yeah, you know, again,
So,
I'm
no, I
only
just
one
wanted to
person.
stress the
Yeah,
point, like, the
Yeah.
accusation was that the information wasn't
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
And it's in the quarterly newsletter. We're doing our best to try and get
Sure.
information out
Sure.
to every resident. And so it's published on there. I go to the community.
Postcards.
Yeah, sent a postcard to every resident.
I haven't received a postcard.
Yeah.
At least I haven't, but I do get the newsletter. Sometimes, again, I look at it, sometimes I don't. I'm
And then
busy,
we're
I
talking about
work.
the survey
Yeah.
and the open houses.
Yep, yep.
And then in terms of, I wanted to ask the stewardship question.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how it was characterized. The 10-year would cost this.
Yep,
And then the 20-year would cost this. And then there was a point for comments. And that's where some of the stewardship comments, where people could freeform and type what they said.
so what do they mean by that is what I'm asking.
So if it's gonna cost us 4 to 6% more year over year, over another 10 years
Yep.
before we do that, it's gonna cost us so much more expense. This is how I interpret it. I'm not in their brain.
Mm-hmm.
But so when they say the stewardship part, it's gonna cost us so much more expensive, than if we do it now. So back to Councilmember Varenkamp's point, if we had built this building that we needed in 2018, I think it was projected at like 29 million. And so year over year,
Sure.
it's going to increase and
Yeah.
increase, and then people are going to be even more or more upset because why didn't we build this 10 years ago? That's going to be the question that we're going to get.
But
What
I
would
do
it cost
agree,
us?
yeah.
$20 million
Sure,
less.
understand.
Yeah.
I do this P&L, it's part of what I do every day as well. I get that part of expenses and how things grow. But I do agree with the gentleman from Blatton Avenue who said, can we consider, I'm not opposed to it at all. I'm not opposed to it, but I agree with what Nicole said, the tax base, that what we pay, I will tell you, I had a 3,600 square foot home below the Wayzata High School that I paid about the same amount of taxes that I do now, moving out of there 2 years ago. My water and sewer bill in Corcoran for 1 month is what I paid in Plymouth quarterly. So people that are looking to come out to this area, close to retirement, great new developments, things like that, that subset of individuals isn't looking for their expenses to necessarily go up. They're looking for them to maybe stabilize or at best to try to go down a little bit. And I was shocked, and I'm still shocked every month when I get my sewer and water bill because I'm like, I am one person and a dog and a cat. So it's like, how? I don't do that many dishes. I'm like, and when I called City Hall when I first moved in, I was told we buy our water and our sewer goes from here to St. Paul to be cleaned and back. And I'm like, okay, that's a logistical nightmare, in my opinion. But again, we don't know those things when we're moving into new cities or new places of homeownership. So I think we want people to move out here. We want the community to grow. I think there's, ample space for retail and all sorts of different things as well. I know it's probably hard to get in here, but people aren't going to make those moves to $500,000 homes than to just have all of this additional tax burden and all of these excess bills that we didn't have in other places when we made the choice to move out here. So anyway, thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Michelle, did you?
Yeah, I was gonna say thank you to the residents who spoke today. It's not easy to get up and speak when you're in opposition of something. I can say that we have been looking at doing a building for the last probably close to 8 or 9 years. I tend to look at budget as well. And I do feel too that we could look at maybe something that is not as large as what we're looking at and match it to where our community is. I don't disagree with looking at it from a 10 to 20-year standpoint with good stewardship and looking at that timeline. But I also think by allowing some time, it's going to allow our community to grow. And there will be more tax people, like more tax base to spread out. Once we're 10 years in, we might have, 6 more developments, and maybe we'll have some more commercial. I'm looking forward to hearing about the schematic to see what that looks like, but I will say I am concerned about the $50 million price tag as well. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Yep.
Some of the comments that I gave on the postcard, I think, deal with some of the perceptions of things being rushed. We did do a fairly thorough process looking at alternatives when we began this exercise. We looked at renovating the existing building just to bring it up to current with the existing footprint. It was like $4.5 million, I believe, from the survey that we had done. And it wouldn't result in any more square footage. It wouldn't accommodate any further growth. So we set that option aside because it didn't deal with the long-term growth implications that we need to wrestle with. We looked at, could we expand this building? And because of the wetlands behind it, we're limited in footprint, so we couldn't expand this site. We looked at, could we lease off-site space someplace in Corcoran? We found there is no off-site space in Corcoran at the present time. Maybe in the future, as more industrial comes in, there could be a choice for that, but there's no clear path to that at the moment. And so, based on that comprehensive assessment, this was the option that appeared to be the most feasible, the most cost-effective that we could follow through on in the near term. It will not be fully funded by today's existing tax base because the tax base is continuing to grow. So every year we see tax capacity grow up between 10 and 14%. And so the proportionate burden of this particular expense will be spread out over that larger tax base over the life of the bonds. So the largest impact will probably be sooner as the tax base is where it is today. When I first joined council in 2020, I want to say our budget was about $6 million. Next year it'll probably be about 12 because of that tax capacity growth. That's with a essentially flat tax rate over that period of time. So it is expensive today. I think we should vet whether it's a viable option to do an intermediate build with option for expansion. Architecturally with the site, maybe that doesn't work. We would potentially have to expand in 2 different directions for the police side versus city hall side. So the complexity of that might not lend itself toward easy expansion. But because we are seeing the revenue base grow over time faster than the cost of construction is escalating, we should at least do that analysis and determine what that stewardship impact would be. Ultimately, I think we're going to end up needing to do something significant that's going to cost more than any of us want it to cost. But it is going to be the result of a thorough process, and we are going to vet it as carefully as we can to make sure that we're not making any foolish investment or wasting anybody's hard-earned money.
Can I address one last thing?
Yeah,
So
one thing and then
the
we'll move on.
expedition of the flyer, so the flyer is not typically part of the process. And so we have changed the process and listening to residents in order to try and create another opportunity for a voice. And we still have baseline requirements in terms of, like, the public hearing is on August 13th. And the reason it's on August 13th is that's when it's required to have it in order to have the reverse referendum window, in order to be able to put it on the ballot. So if we don't have it on August 13th, there's no opportunity to put it on the ballot for a vote. And so that's the reason for the timeline. That's the expeditious nature, is because we're actually listening and we're trying to respond to what's been requested. But we have constraints within the operating system. I can't control the post office. And so part of the reason it needs to be in tomorrow is the post office, not our staff. I wish we could wait until the last day. And then even so, as we try to do that, many of you have testified that with the post office's effectiveness, many of you didn't get the flyer or the postcard that we sent to 3,000 people. And so we're also working on developing videos and trying to create that opportunity for awareness that wasn't part of the plan, but it's actually responding to what's been communicated as concern.
Okay. I think we'll move on to new business. 10A, which is a request for rental capacity exemption at 20020 62nd Place.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
folks, if you don't want to sit through this,
Yeah, no worries.
we'll give you a minute.
Or you can.
Or you can, but we won't, no hard feelings if you don't want to. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for your thoughts.
Sure.
Drive safe.
Is the applicant not here?
Okay. Let's see the
That was my question. Is the applicant here? Okay. Have we started?
Not officially. I think we're waiting for the gallery to clear out.
Sounds like we can make a motion.
See what he's trying to do here.
Hey, folks, the door's gotta stay open. Thank you. I didn't see you there, Buck. Good to see you.
Good to see you. See you later.
Thanks for crowd control. Okay. 10A. Well, who's taking that? Dwight?
I'm taking it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes,
Mr. Klingbeil, I'm going to interrupt you. Is the applicant present?
it does not appear that the applicant is present.
Okay, with that, I'm going to make a motion to deny the request for an exemption from the rental dwelling license capacity for 20020 62nd Place under Chapter 118.03.I.2.C, based on the following 5 findings. 1, rental block 107 is at its permitted capacity of 20 rental dwelling licenses under Chapter 118.03.I.1. 2, the applicant has not demonstrated a financial hardship within the meaning of Chapter 118.03.I.2.C. The sole comparable offered in support of the application, 20032 62nd Place in Hamel, is not a recorded sale. That representation by the applicant was false. County records show the property was last sold in January of 2024 for $441,000 and remains held by the same original owners. Its 2025 assessed market value of $477,700 far exceeds that purchase price, and it is presently listed for the sale price of $474,999, but is unsold. The record therefore contains no competent evidence of a market loss on the block during the relevant period. To the extent it shows anything, it shows growth. 3, any difference between the applicant's mortgage balance and the market value of the property results from the applicant's purchase price and financing decisions, including a loan-to-value ratio of 95% at the time of purchase, rather than from market conditions. 4, the applicant's relocation is voluntary and temporary, with a stated intent to resume occupancy in or around July 2027. No circumstance compels a sale of this property, and accordingly, no forced loss has been demonstrated. And 5, and finally, granting an exemption on this record would be inconsistent with the purpose of the rental capacity limits and would establish a standard under which substantially any recent purchaser on a capacity block could obtain an exemption. Thank you.
Second.
Okay, so we do have a motion and a second. Discussion on that.
We've noted
I'll just
that
restate.
the applicant's not here also.
Mr. Mayor, if I could just interject, just in the event if this applicant is facing an emergency and wasn't able to communicate in time, would it make sense to potentially table this for next meeting to see if he's available to be in attendance?
No.
No.
That doesn't seem like
It wouldn't, nothing to say, make me.
okay.
So I just want to elaborate on the policy intent. When we created the hardship exemption, the thought process was, if there is a drastic market downturn, and you have large numbers of people with massive amounts of negative equity, there needed to be an escape valve to prevent the ordinance from being a taking. And so we created this hardship exemption that allows council to intervene in the case where the policy objective of the rental dwelling cap is imposing an undue burden, an unreasonable burden. And in this case, I wouldn't say the prospect, even if he was going to face a moderate financial loss on a 2-year purchase of a home, doesn't rise to the level of invalidating the intent of the ordinance. And we probably should have a discussion, now or at some point in the future, what do we mean by hardship? And define that for staff as either a policy guideline or a statement of intent or even an update to the ordinance, so that it's easier for staff to understand what we would need from them in order for us to consider an application like this in the future.
Mr. Mayor, I think that would be very helpful if we could get some further clarification or some, guidance on what the council finds as a hardship, so we can better direct applicants, so there's less frequency of these requests coming before you guys.
Yeah. Well, and that's an excellent point, and I'll note, his house has been on the market for 20 days. That's not a hardship. That's not even a single mortgage payment. And my interpretation of hardship is you have a family, the breadwinner dies unexpectedly, and you have a widow who has no work experience and is going to lose everything unless he or she can get some kind of relief. To me, that is the intent. I don't think that the intent of this statute is, I entered into this really high interest mortgage rate and I put 20 grand down on a $500,000 house, and now the bank's nipping at me and I need a way to get out of this. That's not the intent. I don't even like getting involved in people's finances. This shouldn't even be here. But the fact that it is and is being taken advantage of, I take great exception to.
Can I ask our legal counsel, do we need a hardship clause in this thing?
That was recommended.
Yeah, Mayor and Council, the hardship clause, as Councilor Nichols was alluding to, was sort of to cover those really hard case situations where potentially it could be considered taking. The use of the property is compromised or frustrated in some way. I think the language was deliberately left a little bit vague to allow you some discretion in making those determinations, but I think, to the council's point, it would be helpful to staff, I think, to get some a more defined idea of what you're looking for in that, and whether that be through policy or amendment or anything else. It doesn't necessarily, you can't possibly contemplate every possible scenario, but you can say that this is more of an extreme remedy, and that seems to be what the council is leaning toward. That can be how staff interprets it, but with some guidelines, I think you'll see.
To my question, I agree with Councilmember Lanterman. If this were to happen for rentals, what happens on other things? The scenario Mark just went through, if that were to happen to me, I'm selling or it's going back to the mortgage company. It's not trying to figure out a way, but I mean, and I would still have to find a place to live on top of it. And it snowballs so quickly on these things. And does it need to be there because of what we put in place? Does a hardship site need to be there? That I just don't see it. We have said this many per block of whatever our ordinance is. Why is there a hardship clause?
To avoid it being a takings claim.
That had this density cap when we wrote this. And all, I don't want to say all three of them, but I believe there were 3 lawsuits for people who were unable to sell their homes after.
Crazy amount of time.
Yeah, they were unable to sell their homes, and they were told they were not able to rent their homes, and so they went to court We don't know how that the court would have ended up ruling,
Okay.
because they were eventually able to sell their homes, but that's years in the making. There was years of long back and forth. So in order for us to protect ourselves, because it was kind of iffy, it could have been that all of a sudden no rental caps would be in place. Us trying to be responsible and try to provide that flexibility was so that we can potentially avoid being brought into court to
Got
have
it.
it be determined that a rental cap is not legal. So,
No, thank you.
If I could just add to that, we have it because we have compassion,
Yeah, we do.
okay? And when someone's life turns to you know what,
Yeah.
they, you know, we should, I think that clause is for us. That clause is for us, and it gives us discretion. And it gives them their dignity. So I'm
So
fine.
we should keep it.
I'm
just
fine
defined.
with it as is. What I don't like is, well, I've had my house on the market for 20 days, and well, no, I haven't had any callers. Well, I called, no, his realtor didn't return my call. So, I mean, you know, how much is this marketing? It gives us discretion. Like I said, if you have someone, you know, you might have, you know, God forbid, you know, half a family killed in a car accident, and mom is left alone with twins. You need to rent your house. Yeah, God bless you. You know, so I think that helps us, and it helps them. And I just think that I don't want to see a bad precedent set because someone makes misrepresentations in an application.
Can I just quickly add, while I think a policy will be helpful for staff, I'm not opposed to fleshing that out further, whether like a policy or code amendment, I do want to say that a couple of these that we brought have been after we told them, yeah, you're not going to get it, but they've insisted. And so I don't think that that's going to go away, but if we do have a policy, then it could be on consent, and it could be based on the policy, staff's recommending denial. So I think that would help in that, but it doesn't mean that would stop the request.
And just to add on to it, so yes, compassion is definitely part of that, Councilmember Lantern, but it's also akin to a safe harbor provision. You don't know what facts and what hard case could be presented to you. This would give you an option if that happened. What we're hearing is the council wants to use that only in extreme circumstances. So whether that's a policy or some set of criteria you want to put in there, we can certainly do that. But to Natalie's point, it may not frustrate all of these from coming before you, and you'll analyze them the same way. Yeah.
We've heard 3 so far. One was an investor and even bought the property yet.
And that was when we said, you're not going to get it, you're not going to get it.
One, we had some investigatory evidence that contradicted what we were told. And it sounds like this is another case where investigatory output has contradicted what we've been told. So I don't even feel like we've actually gotten somebody legitimately claiming hardship yet.
True.
Mr. Mayor, if I could also add on to Natalie's point, yeah, a lot of these have been after staff has tried to recommend that they flesh out their argument more or recommend that they look for other means first before approaching council. These requests don't have a fee associated with them, so I think establishing a fee structure for these requests could be helpful in limiting some of these and filtering them out. So
With an option that council can waive it after hearing it.
Yeah.
Or it can go towards the rental permit fee.
Yeah.
So,
I think this is a good
How much
discussion
is
for
that?
another time.
Okay.
We do have a motion,
oh, sorry.
but no, it's okay.
It's a good consideration.
I do think that's a good consideration too. So Jay, if you want to make a note of that for when it comes back to a council meeting to maybe bring that up and flesh out an actual policy on that. But to the motion itself, is there any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And I will abstain because I think I have a different understanding. I'm a little confused. I was hoping I could ask the applicant. I'm not quite sure where I land on it, so I will abstain from this one. 401. lot
So
of us
in
not
terms
even
of a
here have to do
policy,
that.
I'd be willing to volunteer to join a subcommittee to create something or draft something to give to staff, and we could bring it to council. Is anybody else
Yeah.
open to that?
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Okay. On to 10B. Mark and I did interviews for Parks and Trails. We did not do charter, given the number of applicants and the timing of when we have to really get things going. Parks and Trails was the priority. Mark, do you want to touch on the calls and
Yeah,
the
except I
candidates?
came out without my notes.
Oh, no worries. I have at least the overview. So we had calls with 3 really good candidates, all of which I feel comfortable would be great additions to the commission. But after some discussion, Mark and I decided that we would recommend, let's see, I believe it's Margie
Yep.
and Tony to terms on the Parks and Rec Commission. We have the date.
Yeah, they both had really strong, in my opinion, all of the candidates had really strong.
I don't see their applications and their time in Corcoran and stuff like that. I'm on, I legislate, I can see cover page, you
We
might,
didn't include them because I was waiting for recommendations.
Understood.
I didn't have anything. yet,
understood.
so, Yep.
I'll stop at, thanks.
I think we usually include them though, don't we? When we appoint someone?
We have sometimes, I don't know that it's
Okay.
been consistent.
You guys have vetted them.
Yeah.
I respect.
One
what
of
you've
them
done.
has been a repeated applicant on several other things, so we've all seen him before, Tony. Margie, I think, is new first-time applicant.
New first-time applicant, lots of experience with Parks and Rec.
Yep.
She was Parks and Rec at Hopkins, Minnetonka, and Plymouth.
Yeah, she had a lot of
Before moving to Corcoran.
Tony is
Anthony, I'm gonna,
Whitcomb.
Whitcomb, yeah.
Whitcomb.
I know I
Oh, good.
mispronounced
Cool.
his last name.
I like it.
No.
Do you need a motion?
Yes,
Okay. I will make a motion to, based
the
on
recommendation.
based on the mayor's and Council Lanterman's interview process, that we appoint Margie to the Parks and Trails Commission, and who would the other gentleman?
Tony.
And Tony Wickman, also to the Parks and Trails Commission.
Second.
All right, any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Perfect, thank you. And then one note to staff, the third applicant, Deb, if we can make sure to keep on file, she also was very, very good and seems very interested, might be starting to come attend meetings and try to help out in different ways. She would like her application kept on file for future potential vacancies, and I think it's good to have a good candidate in the hole in case, something crazy happens and we have another vacancy and we know we have someone that we can put in there, so it's a good problem to have. Alrighty, staff reports, anything?
One thing that I need guidance on, Mr. Mayor, so I thought we were gonna get to discuss Heritage Park if it got pulled off the consent, and that didn't happen. And so here's what I need guidance on. So the construction of the building continues, and there is some danger related to the construction of the building. I walked the site with staff and also with the contractors earlier this week, and staff's recommendation is that there's a safe way in order to open the playground. The playground is 95% complete. There's still some things that need to happen. And between now and the 23rd, when we talked about the ribbon cutting that we've planned for that work session, a significant portion of that will be complete. What won't be complete is some areas that are essentially landscaping, and staff doesn't have the capacity in order to put the barriers there right now. And when we talked with the contractor, I asked for a bid on what it would be, because I thought, hey, this is a quick and easy way, I'll just bring that to council. It came in at over $10,000, and that's unacceptable to put some rope with some little signs in. And they admittedly still have some liability on the site. And so this would be staff's recommendation, is that we limit open hours of the playground to non-contractor operating hours. So essentially open from 5 p.m. until park close each evening and on weekends. That helps us forego the cost of fencing off, or the staff time of fencing off those areas that we don't want. And then it also keeps the liability with the contractor. So we talked internally about us taking that on. If we do it, we're essentially accepting some liability for controlling the site that they're responsible for. And so, go ahead.
Is this a condition that the contractor created?
Well, their recommendation and what they would not open up the playground at this point. So we created a condition in requesting to open up the playground. The playground was going to be open at the same time as the building. The building's delayed because the siding hasn't come in, and there's some other delays to it. And what I was saying when I was on site is I would much rather that we open it up to the degree that we can on July 23rd, rather than waiting until all the kids that would play on it go back to school.
Yeah, well, I just think it's kind of outrageous to receive a cost estimate of $10,000 from a vendor who contributed to the dangerous, conditions.
So in this case, it's already a controlled site. We've actually changed the request related to the conditions. So if we didn't go on the playground, it's currently closed off.
If they were on time though, would they?
So going into the on-time part, there's some things that have happened in terms of their partners. It's a complex scenario that isn't, we can't flatly blame the contractor for that. And so that would be staff's request, is that if that's acceptable, council direct us to provide some signage that opens it up in hours in which it's not a construction zone. The other alternatives would be because we requested the contractor allow us to open it up, and then since we're changing the conditions, that was the cost of changing the conditions, or if you have other recommendations.
What is physically different between open and closed for the playground?
A sign that says the playground is closed.
Okay.
We got people ignoring the signs now saying to stay off the trail, the park is closed.
There were people on the playground 30 minutes before I got there.
Right.
Yeah, but if someone were to get injured on the playground right now, the fact that they're not controlling the site, it would be on the contractor. If we were to take that on, if someone got injured on the site, we change the conditions and the liability would be on us. So if we put up a sign that says it's only open when they're not there, that manages our liability, it helps manage theirs. But to your point, I think people are still gonna go and play on it if they wanna play on it. But we need to put signage that says it's at your own risk.
Yep, I think that's what we have to do, but also we should stay on the I understand that you're saying it's not just the contractor, but I'd like to make sure we're staying on them so that we get caught up on that.
To that point, one risk that we are accepting that I just heard is since we aren't fencing off the landscaping and stuff like that, smart people are gonna stay out of muddy landscaping. Bad actors are going to damage it regardless of whether we put little fences around it or not. To what degree the landscaping is damaged, we are gonna have to pay to have that reseeded or repaired at the end, because that wouldn't have happened if we had requested to open up the playground. So.
Investing that except investing 10,000 and potentially making repairs, that some of that money, you're basically planning to use some of that money.
How big of an area is it that you'd have to rope off, or?
It's really silly areas. So as you come down the come down the concrete, there's an area that's probably about 8 by 10 by 10, but then along the sidewalk, it's the whole area that's just being seeded now.
It's like 1,200 feet. Doesn't feel like a lot, but that's the real construction crisis that we're facing when we talk about stuff. So I think we evaluated it pretty extensively of how we can do a soft opening and get it open this summer, and this is really staff's advice on the best way to do that. It's like managed mitigated risk, but the benefit of opening it in the summer, even though it's on nights and weekends, we feel like that's worth the risk at the staff level.
The contractor's option of just keeping it closed doesn't seem untenable, and we're going to continue to get concerns from people later. Why are you doing this? The playground's done. Why isn't it open? So
make sure to communicate it well on social media, on the website and stuff.
Can I ask one quick question? I'm just curious. So there's a conflict or a contradiction in what the contractor believes should happen and what the city believes should happen. If something were to terribly, if something very bad happened, could it ever come back to the city as far as like, well, if they came back and said, well, the contractor said this playground was open, why did the city open it?
So they're responsible for the primary construction site. Really, the risk is damaged landscaping in the area around the playground.
Okay.
If people go onto the building site,
Yeah.
that is a dangerous site. If they go on there and they get injured, they are disobeying signs and just
Yeah.
being foolish.
But that's what I'm asking, is if something happens and then someone still does that, because that could potentially happen, what is the result? Because the
So
builders
for the
that-
city's liability, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Thames, right now by assigning play at your own risk,
Okay.
only during these hours, as was brought up by Councilmember Camp, people are already playing on site, they're already showing up. And so we're trying to mitigate the risk by trying to change some behaviors to the degree where it's the least risky. But if we do nothing, the scenario that you talk about still very much can happen.
And I
I think
think the
we're protected
concerns,
Mhm.
I think the concerns, so keep in mind, we basically have 3 contracts on top of each other, which is the complexity of pointing out to one single entity owns everything. So we have 3 contracts on top of each other, plus a public space next to it. So I don't know that we're entangled somewhat no matter what, and we'd have to argue that. If it came to it, we don't want it to come to it, so we're in a risk mitigation versus value added sort of conversation.
Decision to
And
waive torts or
the
not.
issues expressed by the contractors were related to making sure the restoration gets repaired, which we're acknowledging we'd have to own, and then they were concerned about equipment operation. So when we designated outside of their working hours, we mitigated to expressly stated concerns that they had. So we're addressing their concerns, so it shouldn't I would argue it shouldn't significantly change the liability that exists today, and for that minimal benefit, it's potentially worth, with your consideration, opening the park for the summer. So that's how we arrived at it.
Or should we just make JCB sit out there? Put that in minutes. All right, anything else, anything from council? All right, city council schedule, we kind of went over some changes to it, the schematic design added to the 23rd, but also note, along with the park, ribbon cutting, are we actually doing a ribbon cutting on the 23rd?
Yes, so it'll be a soft opening, ribbon cutting, it's really a photo op.
All ribbon cuttings are. Sounds good. Do we have big scissors?
We will have big scissors.
Sweet, count me in.
Get a haircut.
Yeah, and then the next meeting is the 23rd. So hopefully, if anyone's going to the Hamel Rodeo, have fun. I'm sure it's already booming tonight. I'll be there next Saturday, and then the parade on Sunday. Should be a fun time. Anything else? All right, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Adjourn.